Nick from the Unknown Film Enthusiast, and today I just wanted to talk a little bit about the newest DC movie, Aquaman. Now, Aquaman was first introduced to us in the very divisive 2016 film Batman vs. Superman, where he did little else than just swim at the camera. But since then, he's gained much of an online following, especially in set photos and obviously in Justice League, where his character was a bit more fleshed out. And as a result of that, a lot of people, including myself, are very curious to see where this Aquaman movie would go. And just to start off, I was pretty alright with this movie. Critics and users seem to be about the same, with it being at about a 65 on Rotten Tomatoes, a 7.5 on IMDb, and a Metacritic score of 55%, which isn't great, but it's still above 50. But yeah, all in all, I thought this movie was very fun. It suffered from a lot of the issues that I think Man of Steel had, and movies like Valerian and the City of a Thousand Planets, where there is a very vibrant world that all the characters are living in, except you do not care for almost anything that the characters do or say. Prime example of this just comes straight through with the writing, where characters played by Amber Heard and Patrick Wilson basically spout nonsense for a long time, giving little more than just basic exposition, and we're given no real reason to ever care about any of their motives. Same thing, sadly, with Jason Momoa's portrayal of Arthur Curry. He looks good in the suit, he looks strong, and he looks like a superhero already, but the issue is you never really relate to any of his actual problems, because it never seems like he's ever in that much trouble, and by the time the movie ends, you realize you've seen a hero's journey, but you haven't really felt like you've been along with him or struggled with him at any real point in the movie. But putting the negativity aside for a little bit, I just want to talk about the excellent world building that's been done here. Similar to the first 5 minutes of Valerian and the City of a Thousand Planets and probably Avatar, it's rare to see such a fleshed out, I'll call it alien world because it's foreign to us, and it's so vibrant, it's so colorful, it's so anti-everything that DC has been before this point. And it really shows the true imagination and creativity that can come when you give a director full creative power over their movie. And James Wan was given basically a palette to do whatever he wanted with Aquaman. He was given the option of either doing Flash or Aquaman, and chose Aquaman over Flash. And I feel like the movie has come out better for that. If this were another Zack Snyder movie, the ocean would probably be black, and we would not be able to distinguish any of the dark gray colors of Atlantis, but instead we have this colorful, bursting with light version of what Atlantis is, and it really helps create a mythology in just a short period of time of all of these different types of people. And another very strong point is James Wan comes from a horror background, having a large part in the creation of the Saw series, Annabelle, The Conjuring, The Nun, and various spin-offs of that. And it really shows in certain scenes of this movie where you're supposed to be fearful, or there is unique character designs, specifically when it comes to the area of the trench, where there's these fish-like creatures that are quite horrifying, and were this not in a superhero context, it would work well as its own standalone horror movie. And another benefit that comes along with the trench scene is just the general world traveling that happens through this movie. It feels like more of an adventure movie than you would usually get from a superhero movie, where usually the hero is just fighting in their own hometown and defending that. Arthur Curry has to defend the sea as a whole, which leads him on a global trek, which really brings a lot to just the scale that a lot of these movies can have. And all in all, it was just fun to sit down and watch, as opposed to most of the other movies that DC presents, such as Suicide Squad, Batman vs. Superman, Justice League, and Man of Steel, which are all very dour and dark and never really hook you with anything in specific. And while Aquaman is by no means perfect, it at least gives you a fun time in the theater, and I can understand why this is quickly becoming the highest grossing DC film of their new expanded universe. And I think it bodes well to giving directors more creative freedom, because as we've seen with Patty Jenkins with Wonder Woman, we now see with James Wan with Aquaman, and hopefully Shazam will see the same amount of creative freedoms that allow the character to breathe a little bit without being tied down to an extended universe like this. It's hard to really root for another comic book movie in a year where we've had about a half a dozen of them, if not more, but Aquaman is something quite unique when all is said and done. And for that reason, I would recommend a lot of people go out and see it because it's just a fun and exciting theater experience. And now the moment everyone has been waiting for is, how does this movie connect to 2002's masterpiece, Signs? And the answer is quite fishy, if you will. So Willem Dafoe is in this movie as Arthur Curry's mentor of sorts, and he was also in a movie in 2003 where he was underwater, where he played the role of Gil in Finding Nemo. Now, also in this movie was Albert Brooks, who was then in Finding Dory with Sigourney Weaver, who was in the 2004 M. Night Shyamalan film The Village with Joaquin Phoenix. Joaquin Phoenix, of course, being in the movie Signs. Signs, sealed, delivered. It's Signs. Thank you, and have a good night.